stuck in massive traffic.
Bring it on. Want some, get some. Can I get a hell yeah? Yes, I am a pirate. You have to go with the pirates because, of course, they have cannons and everything.
It's a pirate's life for me.
Be proud of who you are and what you are. You're a pirate.
It is a first down. Pirates.
Because when you're at East Carolina, you go for it every time. Or you don't coach at East Carolina, you don't come to East Carolina, you don't play at East Carolina with a weak heart. Write it.
I think I've ever been in a building as loud as that was. It was deafening in there.
You will get them on. I can promise you that.
Painted purple all night long in Eastern North Carolina.
You're watching The Sports Objective, the podcast for Pirates.
Yeah. My heart is purple and gold. I'm a pirate down to my soul. And I don't back down, not at all. Find out when the cannons explode.
All right, welcome into TSO Sunday night. And this is going to be, I promise, a great show. I just have a feeling because, man, we've got real talent. I'm telling you, we got real talent tonight. Let's see. I'm going to start with my buddy in the right corner. If you're listening, then just imagine the right corner. And that would be Kyle from LaGrange Barber. What's up, dude?
What's going on, guys? It's good to be here on a Sunday night in late June. It's that time of year. Phil Steele is out, and at least I got my copy. It's you can start to smell it, taste it, feel it just a little bit. It's getting closer and closer to fall camp, and you're starting to think about football.
No doubt. Speaking of football, the former linebacker. And I'm talking about in the Steve Logan, we win all the time era. I'm talking about Matty Ice. And that's what I call him. You know him as Matthew Semenza, number 49. What's up, brother?
What's up, fellas? Great to be with you guys. Excited to talk football. This is reminding me a little bit of Hollywood Squares. This format. For a second, I thought Kyle was Joan Rivers for a second down in the corner.
They look a lot alike, and she's kind of dead. So.
Oh wow.
Wait a minute. I don't even have a comeback for that. Give me later.
That's the
you're
first.
alive, and you don't look anything like Joan Rivers. Stevie Fly, all the way from Lasker, North Carolina. What's up, brother?
That is the head coach of Northeast Academy, Stevie Fly.
Yes, he is, and he's one of the biggest Kiss fans. Just when you think, oh, yeah, I love Kiss. I'm a Kiss fan. No. And then there's damn Stevie Fly.
Yeah. Representing the night, too. Bud.
I love it. And they are still on the road. They're going to be on the road. They have the longest goodbye tour I've ever seen in my life.
Oh,
Johnny, let's bring in. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, Stevie.
No, go ahead.
Let's bring in all the way from, I believe, are you in Nova? You're in Northern Virginia, or are you in Greenville, Johnny?
Tonight I'm in Haymarket, Bull Run Mountain, Virginia.
Okay, all right. I probably shouldn't have outed you. I'm sorry that maybe thought that you were in Greenville. Anyway, glad to have Johnny Stats on with us. He'll be, by the way, making his debut on the show. He's always with us for the last few years, but he's going to be part of our football coverage. And last, but certainly not least, he is an ECU Hall of Famer. He's one of the best punters we've ever had. Hence, that's why he's in the Hall of Fame. He's in our Hall of Fame for TSO. Good friend of ours of the show, Andrew Bays. What's up, dude?
What's up, fellas? It's awesome. Thank you for having me tonight. I'm with you all the way from Orlando, Florida, down here watching junior volleyball for my daughter, and it's action packed 4 days down here with AAU national tournament. So it's good to break free from that and be able to talk some Pirate football.
So you have Semenza that hopefully has a future Pirate in Chase Semenza, and you have Andrew Bays who hopefully has a future daughter that's a future Pirate, I should say, in volleyball.
Yeah, you never know. You never know how that goes. I got one playing beach volleyball at University of Tampa right now, and a younger one behind her. So the recruiting stuff just started up couple of weeks ago. So yeah, she's just now getting kind of into the swing of the recruiting.
Andrew, before we start breaking down the 2025 football season, hearing that I don't know if this is official yet, if we're telling tales outside of school, but hearing is Kevin Monroe not going to do games at all this year, or are we allowed to say that yet?
That I don't know about. I mean, Kevin, the last I've talked to Kevin is still status quo. Kevin doing home games and myself doing away games.
Okay, probably bad information. I got. So just erase that from your memory. Anybody who heard that, it's probably bad information. So it's still going to be Bays on the road and Kevin Monroe at home. Andrew, all right, and I said one more thing before we started breaking down the 2025 football season. But before we do that, and I'm sure everybody will appreciate this, Matt. First, Matt and Bubba were the superstars of the Military Bowl with their sideline and contested touchdown. But Andrew, gotta ask you, man. I don't if I've had this conversation with you before now. I don't remember, but you were in the booth. You went on. I went back and listened to your call. I was at the game. I went back and listened to your call. You were in the booth, and then you went to the sidelines as the touchdown, right before the touchdown was being scored. Where were you at in terms of the elevator and the field? Where were you at when Rajay scored that touchdown?
So that was a crazy sequence. So, obviously, we didn't have a full boat. Maceo wasn't with us on that trip, and Kevin and I were up in the booth with Jim, and we kind of drew straws there at the end of the game as far as who was going to go down and grab the mic. And, obviously David set us up to run down, try to get a post-game interview and with Coach. And,
David Horn, you're talking about.
That's right. And so I actually was anxious to get down there and do it. And so, David set me up late, obviously late in that one. And so I went down the elevator down to the concourse level, and literally as I was getting down in the lower level, walking straight down, right about the 50-yard line down the steps in the lower rung, is right when Rajay broke it. And I was literally with the fans in the middle of right at 50-yard line, right when that thing broke. And I was literally giving high fives and hugging fans all around me when that happened. And, as things were kind of easing, as they were coming on for extra point, that's when I just walked down onto the field, and right in time for, the melee that went on right there on the Pirate sideline, the scuffle that ensued, and obviously the pick there at the end with Nash. And, the timing of me getting down there, it was just, obviously Matt had that experience being out on the field, but being a former player to be able to, and obviously Monroe has had those experiences before, but to be a former player and be down on the field and experience that call in my ears as I was down low enough to be able to watch it and then get on the sidelines to enjoy that with the program. And obviously, get the post-game interview with Blake there. And, it was just a great experience as a former letter winner to be able to do that.
I listened to your call, and you talk about, you get down there, and I guess from your vantage from the press box, you couldn't see our crowd very good. And you get down there and you tell Kevin and the rest of the guys, how electric our crowd is, how it's the whole lower bowl's filled up with Pirates. Obviously, and I'll ask Matt the same thing too, and then we'll finally move on from that and start talking about this year's NC State game. But where does that, I guess it's different when you're a player versus viewing it from a former player's perspective, media perspective, fan perspective. But where does that rank in terms of not being a player? Is that your favorite memory from a Pirate game, as one you coming from the perspective of one you didn't play in?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I went to a Military Bowl in RFK Stadium, probably whatever that was back in 2010 or something like that, when they played Maryland at RFK.
Yeah, 2010.
that was a different experience for me being a fan watching that. But no, without question, to me, that was extra special. I didn't want, after that happened, like you said, we get up in that press box ultra early, and, from there, you don't have a great vantage point down once the stadium fills up. And I could really only see maybe the first 20 rows, 15 to 20 rows from the press box, from our vantage point. So yeah, literally when I got down there, I was pretty shocked at the volume of Pirate fans as I got down to the sideline and looked up to just a sea of purple and gold. That was pretty special. I did not expect that. I knew our crowd would show up. Obviously, that Friday night, downtown Annapolis was a blast. It was a Pirate takeover, 100%. But for me, that experience to see that unfold, to enjoy it with the team down on the field, and then Kevin and I, we had a pretty special moment. Just as we helped break down the studio after the game, and help David Horn kind of get all the equipment down to the truck, and then him and I just walked back to our hotel from the stadium. And that was just awesome because the streets were buzzing with Pirate fans after that win. And it was just, a great feeling as former letter winners, former players to be able to experience that win from that vantage point in the booth and down on the field. It was awesome.
Yeah, no doubt. And speaking after the game, we all went and celebrated the Buffalo Wild Wings because we had to go somewhere kid friendly and had a blast. Matt, just briefly one more time from your perspective. I know we've talked about it. You were on the sidelines as Rajay scored that touchdown. Just from a fan standpoint, not a player standpoint, but where does that rank for you in terms of experiences at ECU football games in games you didn't play in?
Yeah, definitely from a fan standpoint, it's my favorite memory of any game I've been to. I was down in the swamp several years ago, and that was almost a great memory, but we know what happened at the end of that game. But this was awesome. I think, one of the things that made this so much fun was you look at what this team went through last year, changing coaches midway through the season. Obviously, you had the big change at quarterback from Garcia to Hauser. And you think about where that team was after the Charlotte game. I mean, we were thinking that there's no way at that point we were going to play in a bowl game, never mind beat NC State. And, there was so much that went on. And for that team to respond the way they did, and Blake Harrell to have the effect he did on that team was pretty awesome to see. And, it was just a lot of fun. I was down in the end zone that Rajay scored at the end. And I literally... So I was with Bubba, and I saw when he creased, he got down the left sideline, and you could see a crease. And I started literally hitting Bubba, saying he's taking it to the house. I mean, you could just see it open up, and it was just awesome to see Rajay go out like that and make that kind of a play and to get the win.
I was actually looking for Matt and Andrew. I was looking for flags on the field because I just knew that officiating crew was going to throw a flag, and I was celebrating, and I kept looking around. I was like, wow, no laundry.
Actually, it was a pretty well officiated game.
Oh yeah, it was. I just was worried. I was just worried with that. It felt
the phantom holding call on big plays like that. Yeah, you do see that a lot.
Yeah, but hey, we got a nice exclamation point. I'll tell you what, guys, I've told y'all this before, but you mentioned, Matt, you mentioned the Charlotte game. That was when Caden Hauser really took over the team. And I just remember that post-game was one of I've covered post-game shows, listen to me, post-game interviews for many years, over the years. And that is by far the worst post-game that I've ever had to do, because you just felt like that any minute now, Houston's going to get fired. And they put Caden Hauser in, and it was just like, it was such an embarrassment. And to think, like you said, to have a season where you go there, then you lose to Army, which you expected probably to lose to Army, not to Charlotte. But that game, was an embarrassment. And then you start turning things around. It's amazing how I talk about at work about having a boss or a coach, if you will, that you run through a brick wall for. Blake Harrell, those guys run through, they respect him. And I think that he's a lot more or less tense. He's tough on them, but he's not tense like Houston. And I think, I can't predict how the season will go, but I think it will. I think we're definitely a bowl team. It's just a matter of what bowl and how many wins.
Yeah, David, to your point, going back to that Charlotte game, Jim and I were obviously we're on the call. Kevin was actually there with his son on a recruiting visit, and had come up to the booth for a little bit. And we had no expectation that no Pirate fan had any expectation that that game was going to go the way it did. We were thinking it was going to be the opposite of, instead of getting hung 55 points on, we thought we would be on the other side of that. And it was a completely deflated game. I remember the whole ride home, I drove to that game, and the whole ride home, I was on the phone with a lot of Pirate people. I was just really confused as to what I had just watched. And, to come out of that week and obviously go to Army, and the program had moved on from Mike Houston after that Army game. But, to be in the middle of the season at Charlotte and experience and watch, firsthand what that looked like, to see Blake, step in and be able to turn those guys around fairly quickly. The two games that stand out on that run was when they went to Tulsa and when they went to North Texas. Those were, obviously, not crazy competition there at the end of the season on the schedule, but as far as, incredible work for Blake in those tight games to come out on the road with wins. I think those are what made statements for the players in that locker room to say, all right, man, this is our guy, let's go. And that's coaching staff being in and around that coaching staff, and those pregame, those kind of pre-workup meetings that we have with coaches. It was just an interesting experience, and for Blake to be able to step in and do that, under pretty tough circumstances, even though he had nothing to lose. It was a unique situation for him to go after it, and he did. And kudos to him, and kudos to those coaches to finish out the season as strong as they did.
Some key things to me. You brought up Tulsa, North Texas, but you look at that Tulsa game. It was an empty stadium on a Thursday night on a short week on the road. It's a back and forth game. We have to win it at the very end, make a defensive stand in the end zone. Then you go back-to-back road games are never easy. Then you have to go travel to Denton, Texas, in Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. You get down early on the road with all the adversity the team had faced, and not only do you come back and win it in the second half, you dominate the second half.
Yeah,
really put them away. And so those two games are kind of, like you said, the statement to me. And another big part of it, as we'll start to transition into this year, John David Baker. Blake kind of took the restraints off JDB and let him do his thing. He let him go on the sideline, which I'm assuming maybe he wanted to do the whole time, and Houston wouldn't allow it. I don't know that to be fact, but I do know as soon as Blake became head coach, JDB went on the sideline. And, I remember just one of the things that I noticed the most, besides Hauser coming in with the change at quarterback, was the way we used our running backs differently. We ran the ball a lot, but we used the running back so much differently. You'd use Rajay a lot, but then, people, if you go back and look, there were long periods of time, particularly in the second half, where he would sit Rajay. And then in the fourth quarter, Rajay would be fresh and he would light their asses up. And I really liked the way JDB utilized the running backs, particularly, once he was kind of turned loose and allowed to do things the way he wanted to. Andrew, we talked about the way the team responded to Blake. Did you have a chance in the spring to make it out to mini practices?
I did. I made it out to a couple practices and some scrimmages, and had a decent look. I mean, they've got a ton of turnover, and it's no different than a lot of programs in the conference. But offensively, they're bringing a lot of guys back. I think they've they've acquired some pieces that are you're gonna help the offense. An already established offense. They got some key pieces that I think are going to step in and have an impact right away. Defensively, that's the big question mark, obviously, right? I mean, we go back to the NC State game, and I was talking to Kevin before the game, and I said, man, we're going to know really quick when this thing starts, whether this NC State, there's some belief that NC State offensive line was going to push our defensive line around. And, taking a look at it, I was very curious as to what that looked like as the game got going. And I remember making a comment. I'm sure it was part of the broadcast, but I remember making a comment to Kevin early in that one that Deontay Johnson was getting in the backfield often against the NC State offensive line. And he stayed in the backfield. He was penetrating the interior of that offensive line. And to me, I was not expecting that. I was expecting that the larger NC State offensive line to push our defensive line around, but that was not the case. And the defense really stepped up. Defensive line did a great job. There was a ton of leadership on that core, on that front seven. And, they lost a lot of that. So, they have replaced some pieces. I know they got a transfer from Houston, Benton, that I know the coaching staff's, big on as far as what he was able to do this spring. I was able to take a look at DeJour, the transfer from Sam Houston, who has a very similar frame as Sam Dankin. I think they'll probably in a lot of ways play opposites. Dankin at the will and DeJour outside linebacker rotating with Raheem Craig. But there's going to have to be, I know from a defensive back standpoint, they're still very much unsettled. And I think they're very much still unsettled on the defensive line, how that all is going to look. They're I know they after spring, they hit transfer portal more, bringing in more defensive backs. But Matt, I don't know if you had to take a look at them in the spring, but I know defensive backs, big question mark for that defense.
Yeah, I totally I agree with everything you just said, Andrew, and I think you kind of nailed it. I mean, you feel really good about this offense. Defensively, a lot of question marks. For me, I think you touched on the secondary a little bit. I feel like and I've been really consistent saying this, is that my biggest concern with this team is up front on the D line, because we lost so many bodies up there, and it's really tough to replace those guys. And that's not a knock on who we have, but we have inexperience there, and that's the biggest thing. So I think it's going to be tough to replace them. But I think ultimately, when you look at this team, I expect a lot of shootouts this year. I think offensively, we are going to be very explosive. I think we have some dynamic playmakers in this offense, and I see a lot of games where we put up 35 to 45 points. And the biggest thing, and I'll kick it over to you, Stevie, as a coach, but I can't state enough how important it is to, as a player, to be in your second year in a system where everything, all of a sudden, you're not thinking as a player, you're just reactive, you're playing instinctively. And, one example of that would be, you think about like Hauser, his ability now to be so comfortable in the offense and go to his second and third read when he has to. What are your thoughts on that, Stevie?
Yeah, that's going to be big for him. I thought he did a great job last year in that second half. But like you said, having another year in that system, the familiarity with it, it's going to be like second nature to him now. I agree with what you guys said about the defense. It depends on how quick they come along. But having another year in that system for Hauser is going to be big time for him. I'm looking, like you said, 35, 40 points is easy. Should be easy for us this year. But how does that defense come along? Like you said, defensive line, you lost a lot. You got a lot of turnover there. You got to have some guys step up and be able to make some stops. And like you said, we should be explosive this year with Hauser and quarterback coming back for a second year.
No, the coaches, if you asked them, assuming they were being honest, they liked the D line. They liked what they were able to produce. You had the transfer from Houston. You have the edge rusher from Sam Houston State, who's played quite a bit. And then, Blake had liked what he had developed. We had a bunch of guys over 300 pounds. We went after a couple of big name defensive linemen, a former starter from Vanderbilt, a junior college All-American, did not land either one of them. And after that, we really didn't go after many other D linemen. But the secondary, they were very concerned about post-spring. And if anybody's been following post-spring recruiting and the transfer portal, we have taken everybody we could that has playing experience at the Division I level. We had already taken, and guys, I'm horrible with names. Stevie, help me out here. Yeah, we had already taken the FCS All-American from Western Carolina, who
Lowry.
Yes,
Jordy
Lowerly. Yeah, who's excellent. I watched him play last year against NC State, and he was going toe to toe with him. He'll be excellent. Then I like the kid from ODU. Again, don't know his name. Somebody help me out here.
Reason.
Yes, thank you, Johnny. Like him a lot. He's played quite a bit. Also, we took the kid who started at Memphis, who then went to FIU. He's been everywhere in the world. I don't know what his story is.
Talking about Polk.
Polk, yes. It's good numbers at Houston. I think he got injured at FIU, and then playing at lower levels since then. He had just went to West Florida in January, then left again post spring. We're going to be his fifth stop. I don't know if he's a locker room guy that whatever. He's got 1 year of eligibility left, gets a starting experience. Former starting safety from Rice, who had gotten injured. Another guy that has a lot of playing experience. We really took a lot. I think we took 6 or 8 defensive backs or safeties.
We got who's that guy? Not. Hold on a second. Tegan Wilk back too.
Yep, got Tegan back. So the secondary is going to look nothing like it did. It's going to look nothing like it did last year, but it's also going to look nothing like it did in the spring. I mean, I think we have a lot of talent there, a lot of playing experience. But Matt, let me ask you, how hard, when you look at the defense, particularly the secondary, and the amount of new players that came in post spring that didn't even practice the spring ball, but have starting experience at the Division I level. How hard is it going to be for them to step in, for it to gel, or with that much experience that those guys have, new system, new coaching staff? How long do you think it's going to be for those guys to pick things up?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I mean, the guys who have a lot of experience, like in particular the nickel that we got from Rice, I think he's a guy that can step up and make plays. Corner DU and also Western Carolina, and those guys have a ton of experience. So for them, it's more just picking up the verbiage, the terminology, and I think they'll pick it up pretty quick. But it's definitely, it's a challenge for some of the guys to come in, and a lot of times when you're new to a college, you're just trying to figure out where to go on campus, and now you're trying to figure out how to play at a high level of Division I football, and it's definitely a challenge. So I think the biggest thing for the staff this off season, and in particular in August when the pads come on, is you have to be able to determine who your guys are quickly, like who you're going to roll out there with, and get them a ton of reps and make sure they're prepared for game one. Because when you look at the schedule early on, it's pretty unforgiving. I mean, you have some really solid opponents there: NC State, Coastal, obviously BYU coming into Greenville. So there's not a lot of time for these guys to, it's not the type of thing where you say like, hey, we're going to turn it on in the second half of the season. It has to be from day one if you're going to be a really good team.
JR, I'm gonna shoot it over to you, Johnny Robinson. Hasn't spoke much here. Johnny Stats, as he's affectionately known by Pirate Nation. Johnny, you look at these guys. One guy that was interesting to me, again, horrible with names, but the kid we picked up from University of Indianapolis had 5 interceptions. I know he was recruited by a lot of Division I schools. Not sure how he ended up there, but he had 5 picks, so a bit of a ball hawk.
Yeah.
Crowell.
Just Crowell, yes. So the JR, just I know you're a stats guy. Who sticks out to you from these secondary players that we brought in, the DBs and safeties, from a statistical standpoint that you're excited about?
Well, I mean, to me, a lot of it's going to have to do with, I don't know a lot about Josh Aldridge. I mean, I've seen what he did at Auburn and at Liberty. And I mean, they got a lot of turnovers at both places when he was there. And when he was at Liberty, he was the assistant DC. So, I mean, this is nothing that's like going to be a huge change for him.
Also,
I mean,
interim head coach for part of that
yeah,
season.
and he was for the
Yep.
bowl game. Yeah. But I mean, I don't know. I think we can count on a lot of turnovers by our defense, hopefully. And I mean, the guy that I like the most, that I mean, we really haven't mentioned. How about the guy from Maryland, Jonathan Akins? I guess his name is.
What do you like about him, JR?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. They're all. I mean, we don't know what we have yet, but every one of these guys, to me, has great potential. And are big play potential guys. So I'm hoping that we can get we can use them to get some turnovers and see what happens.
JR, what do you like about the guy from Maryland?
Well, see, now I'm in Northern Virginia, so I've seen a few Maryland games. He's sideline to sideline. He's he's got speed, lateral speed is what I liked about him. Now I've only seen a couple of Maryland games, so I'm just, going on what I saw. But yeah, the fact that I remembered him said something,
Yeah, and you can't coach speed, so that's
Exactly.
He's got that attribute. I mean, he should be able to step right in. Guys, just I'll throw this out to anybody. Who else? Who excites you? Who else excites you from the portal? All positions, offense, defense, special teams. Who else excites you from the portal?
Hey, Kyle. So the wide receivers that came in, from what I saw, Johnson from Penn State and
Petaway.
And Petaway and Petaway from Oklahoma. Those two, when you see them out, at least when I saw them out there in the spring, it was there. Now, what they do in a game that remains to be seen. But as far as taking a look at athleticism, when you're looking at athleticism out on the field, those two, it was clear that it stood out. Those two have a ton of athletic ability. They're without question going to be threats for that offense. So, to bring those two along with both our Smiths, Yannick and Anthony Smith, to have those two other weapons, along with everything else, that wide receiver room is very deep. To me, those two wide receivers definitely flashed.
Yeah, I like both of them too, Andrew, and I like our wide receiver room in general. And then I like our running back room, with Montgomery and Gunn. The kid from Houston, again, horrible names. Running back from Houston, started for them in 23. Jenkins, yes. Didn't see the field much last year for whatever reason, but as we all know, the offense we run is much similar to Dana Holgerson's offense versus what they're running now at Houston. So he should fit in well. How did he look to you in the spring, Andrew?
The running backs look great. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I had some concerns in the spring on the defensive front because it seemed like the rushing attack they were getting gashing plays. And, I don't know if that's a compliment to the offensive line and the running backs or whether that's a slight to the defensive line. It's really, in those settings, it's really hard to tell. And you don't want to get excited one way or the other because you don't know what looks are going against what looks. But to me, it seemed like the offense was gashing on running plays against the defense. And so all the running backs to me looked good, as well as the offensive line. So, I want to get settled more into summer camp, as we go and really have a good idea of what's going on out there before I get too excited one way or the other.
Yeah, speaking of gashing plays, not a running back, but Mike Wright comes in, and the dude, is fast as grease lightning. He started the quarterback at Vandy, started the quarterback at Mississippi State. He, when he was on Mississippi State, he was the fastest guy on the team, and that's an SEC school. Obviously, Hauser's our starting quarterback, but you're going to have packages for Wright. We didn't just bring him in to be the backup. He's got a unique skill set. Um, Matt, Andrew, I'll ask everybody this, Dave, Stevie, Johnny, but, how much would you guys, Matt, I'll start with you. How much would you utilize Wright? I mean, obviously Hauser's your starter. You don't want to mess with his head, but you got to have packages for him. Would you do it situationally? Would you do it depending on opponent? How would you utilize Mike Wright?
I mean, if he's as advertised in terms of athletic ability, you have to get him on the field. And I would have some very specific packages for him. Um, and you could do it at different times of the game. Like, obviously, the one that really jumps out is, you think about red zone, how you can utilize him in the red zone, whether you mix in, some options, some read option, which can really give people fits. And then you could also use him sort of out of the backfield where, as a decoy, where you get him the ball and then he can throw it as well. I mean, there's so many different things you can do. But it is really challenging for a staff to create specific packages for a backup quarterback. But, with that type of speed, you definitely have to find a way to get him on the field. And, you did see, like, when you think about the NC State game last year, we ran Hauser more in that game than we had all year. He was very effective in that game running the ball, especially in the first half. And so if that's kind of where JDB sees this offense progressing to, there's plenty of room to call some plays, where you can get the quarterback more active in the running game. So that's kind of how I see it. I think you're going to definitely see some very specific packages.
And you guys know how much I love trick plays. So could you see like a halfback, like you're passing and like where you bring them in? Maybe they don't know. Maybe some guys don't know, and you throw in a trick play or two. I just missed that from, maybe I'm a Logan guy, but and I know we have two Logan disciples on here with Semenza and Bays, but I just really miss. I know people say it's because you don't have enough talent, but I really believe that it's the element of surprise. It's like war. You don't say we're going to keep running it down your throat because the run's coming.
The tough thing is you don't, last year I think Mike Houston was pretty clear in, even though fans were calling for it, but he wasn't going to go with two quarterbacks between Garcia and Hauser, and he was pretty committed, whether it was to the detriment of his time at ECU, but he was pretty staunch in what he did between those two quarterbacks. Now coming out of spring, I thought there was and Hauser didn't even really play that much. I know he had an injury that kind of limited him through spring, but
surgery on his thumb.
Yeah, there was pretty significant drop off from Hauser, and I think there was an immediate need to do something to shore that up. We have a short memory of the season, but I remember sitting in the booth, having these comments with Jim, where Hauser, he exposed himself pretty well, in some of those games where he was taking hits unnecessarily. And, the style of which he plays at, you don't want to limit it, and you don't want to, try to turn him into something that he's not. But, he plays hard. He plays the game very hard. And I think the Pirates got really fortunate, that he didn't get hurt. I think there were plenty of opportunities he could have, but he's a tough son of a gun. And the way he plays, you've got to have a legit number two sitting on that bench ready to go. And I think what Wright probably affords them, is that. But I think he also affords them the ability to put in some wildcat packages. I think it's really hard to have two packages for quarterbacks throwing plays and different things. I don't think there's enough time in the week as the season gets on to do that. But I think if you can install wildcat packages and different things early in camp that is part of your established offense, now he is a threat throughout the season that you can utilize him. And John David Baker's a creative coach, and I'm sure he'll find a way to get him involved early and often.
Andrew,
Yeah,
there was a
just to
running
that point, really quick, just to jump in on that. It's a great point. Like, what you have to do as an offense is you want to put it on film. You want to give the defense more to prepare for during the week. So if you could show some different packages with him, like you mentioned, Wildcat, if you put him in there for, I see him speed up. And you put it on film. All of a sudden, you just gave the defense something else. So,
yeah, Matt, you're cutting it out on us some, but we got most of what you said. Andrew, did you want to follow up on that?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Yeah, I think what Matt was probably trying to say is, I think it's vital, if you want that threat, you want to get it on film, and you want other teams to have to plan for it. If they're working on having to stop a Wildcat package, then that's time less, that they're spending less on some other things that maybe Hauser is doing, in his packages. So, if you can pull somebody with that kind of talent like Wright to get him out there and be able to utilize him week in and week out on a package or two, it really helps your offense, because the defense now has to spend time preparing for it.
Yeah, I wouldn't deviate personally too far from what we do. I would just do more of what we do in our quarterback run game with Wright. I mean, we have elements of that. We showed it in the bowl game, and I expect we will, see. I actually think we'll see Hauser run it more because we have Wright behind him. I don't think we'll be scared to have him run it so much. So you have those elements already in your offense, and you're practicing that offense. And then you just hand Wright more of the running plays that we, are already part of the offense. And yeah, you draw up some special things for him too. But, I actually expect, do you guys agree or disagree with that? Do you think because of Wright being there that we may actually see Hauser run it a little more?
I do. You made that point. I was getting ready to make that point, Cal. So I really believe that's why you have Wright, is not only that he's a great athlete, that you get him on the regular packages, but that if Hauser goes down, like we were talking about with all his running that he's doing, then you have to be more conservative. In other words, if you meaning that you don't run Hauser as much, but if you have a Wright like we do, then you know that he's capable of running the offense and running period. So I'm extremely excited about the offensive side of the ball. By the way, guys, I believe Kyle, you said Phil Steele said over 33 points a game, his prediction will score. So if the defense is even mediocre, we're going to win a lot of games we don't even expect that we were going to win early on in our preview time as we're getting ready for fall camp. But I would really see there are a lot of great predictions. I hope you guys are, the guys in the comments.
Yeah, Dave, Phil Steele, and I, this is how much value do these preview magazines have anymore in the day and age of the portal? Half these guys that we signed so late, yeah, Phil Steele may have them, in his write up, but they were added so late. How much did he have a chance to put them in and analyze them on his different computers and stuff he uses? But from the info Phil had, he had our offense averaging around 33 a game and giving up around 31 a game. So those are some high scoring games. I wanted to talk to Andrew specifically about being he is a special teams guy. We brought in a couple guys from the portal. We had our kickers back, but we bring in the kicker from Rhode Island. He had great numbers at Rhode Island. Made all of his extra points last year. I forget his field goal number. JR, do you have his stats?
Not on him. I can find them for you, Kyle. Hold on a second.
All right, you look for those, and I'll just keep rambling. But he was. I know he's 100% on his PATs, and then on field goals, God, he was pretty consistent. I think he had a long of 48 this past season. So just Andrew, wanted to get your thoughts on him, the kicker from Rhode Island,
what about
and
Duke?
the backup punter from Duke, who Previously was the starting punter, I believe, at Furman or Wofford, one or the other.
Yeah, the specialists are gonna, that's one thing that hasn't been a beacon, the last couple years, at ECU. I know Luke's a longtime Pirate, and now he's transferred to what, Villanova, I believe.
Sounds right, yeah.
So Luke's moved on, and this guy Ryan Levy looks like he had a career at Furman, an average of 40.3 over his whatever, I guess it was probably 3 years at Furman, and then transferred to Duke and was a backup there. So, I didn't see anything out in the spring that really, blew my mind. Again, spring's kind of awkward and weird, as it goes, and a lot
Levy's
of
going
the
to be our
field goal
punter.
stuff. What's that?
I think it's safe to say Levy will be our punter.
Yeah. And it, the spring game, I don't believe that was Levy out there at the spring game, was it?
He's the transfer? No, he wasn't here yet.
Okay, yeah. What was being shown at the spring game was I don't think they had anybody established at that point. But yeah, no, someone's going to have to push Noah Perez. He's limited with his length of field goals. He can't. He's pretty accurate inside of 40, but once it kind of pushes beyond 40 or 45, he really kind of struggles on distance, especially if there's some wind out there. So it'll be interesting to see if they've got a more powerful leg. The kid, as you mentioned, the kid from Rhode Island. It'll be interesting to see if he's got a little bit more of a powerful leg than Noah. To really make it a good competition in the summer.
No, we lost Kyle.
Yeah, and just jump on that. Like that. Obviously, field goal kicking translates from whether you're FCS, FBS,
guys. Is anybody else hearing that?
D2.
Hear what?
Like interference?
Kyle's
No,
gone.
I think Kyle. Yeah, we'll let him come back in there. But that does translate field goal kicking, and you look at what he did at Rhode Island, very consistent. And Kyle mentioned the extra points, but also, he did show some range where he can step out and hit, from 45 and in. So that makes a huge difference. I mean, that can be the difference between a win and a loss on any week. So really like that signing there. I think Blake and this staff did a really good job trying to address needs. I mean, we're talking about Mike Wright, but you just think about where we were a few years ago with Garcia and Alex Flynn, and the ability to bring in a proven guy at that level. You just never know, what kind of depth you're going to need. So I really like what Blake did to address those needs.
Yeah, well, I'll take Kyle Barber for the block. He moved over.
Hey, I'm center square.
Yeah, exactly. So you guys, overall, do you guys feel confident going in? In other words, I don't feel like this year we're going to have, not to jinx us, but I don't feel like we're going to have the disastrous start, meaning, yes, we can lose games. I'm not saying that we're going to be like rolling through teams, but it's not going to have the same feel of like, what in the blank is going on here?
Yeah, I mean, continuity on the offensive side is a big deal. To have Caden Hauser in place, have that offense clicking, compared to where they were at this point last year, that's big. I mean, I was looking at an article ESPN had talked about continuity in our conference and kind of, what was returning production, and ECU was towards the bottom, 43% returning production. What's crazy is Army is right there at 43% there at the bottom too. They lost a ton. At the top, the three schools at the top as far as returning production, USF is 67%, UTSA 64%, and Navy is 63%. I know these numbers don't necessarily mean anything, especially in the transfer world. It's interesting to look at these numbers to see where programs are turning over, like where they're cycling. And obviously Army's in a cycle. Memphis is at the bottom. they're at 40%, but they've acquired, I think, all their starters through the portal. So, Memphis is going to be another good team. But, looking at our schedule in our conference, you just never know. The talent. I think the talent pool, as we watch the games, is very equal in our conference. And any given week, there can be different results. I'm interested to see what that Coastal game is going to look like. I'm interested in what that BYU game is going to look like. I'm interested to see what the Army game is going to look like. They're turning that over, and we don't have to worry about that quarterback anymore. It is, this schedule, the last couple of years, these schedules are not crazy by any means. And obviously there's tons of opportunity for ECU in this 2025 schedule. And it'll be important for them to get out to a big jump early. And I think having a settled offense is going to be a big part of that.
Yeah, I want to talk about the schedule. I do want to finish up on the kicker here. And if I missed anything, if I'm chewing my food twice because I cut out because I don't know what was going on or what I was hearing on my end. But the kid actually played in New Hampshire. I was saying Rhode Island, but he actually transferred here from New Hampshire. Played in 13 games last year. He was first team All-CAA. He connected on 18 of 23 field goals. That's 78.3%. He drilled all 32 of his point afters. He made 5 attempts from 20 to 29 yards. He was 5 of 7 from 30 to 39 yards. And Andrew, he was 7 of 10 from 40 to 49 yards, and one of one from 50 plus yards. That was a 52-yarder.
Well, that's what we missed last season. That category that you just, that 40 to 50 plus, that was a component that was missing last season.
Yeah, first team All-CAA, so best kicker in the CAA last year. So huge pickup. And that was a situation where we did not lose our field goal kickers. That was just a chance to upgrade, and we took it. Also, another thing about special teams, we have we picked up the kid from Oklahoma State who was a return specialist very late. He was their punt returner last year. Let me see if I can give you his name.
Hold on, Kyle. I'm looking for you.
But he's a kid, he's a wide receiver by trade, but he really.
He reminds you a little bit of a Tyler Snead type in terms of like his body type and, that type of like shiftiness. So you think about, he's like in that same mold in terms of size, dependable. And the guy, I do like that pickup as well.
Guys, I want to mention too that just looking at about Phil, we were talking about Phil Steele really quick. Interesting. He has 8 players for the Pirates. Raheem Craig, of course, on the D line, 3rd team All ACC according to his magazine. 2nd team for JD Lampley, DB Jordan Lowry. He has Jamarian McCrimmon, 3rd team for the O line. Running back London Montgomery, he has 4th team. DB Jamarly Riddle, 2nd team. Wide receiver Anthony Smith, of course, 1st team. And he has punt returner Brock Spalding, who, of course, you guys remember was injured last year. He has some 3rd team All AAC. But the interesting thing, the reason I brought that up is look at most of those players, or a good number of those players, are defensive guys. Even though they're not 1st team guys, still it's good to see that it's not all offensive guys.
Yeah, no doubt. And I cut out there and missed part of what you were saying, Dave. I was trying to find the Oklahoma State. Did we ever figure out the Oklahoma State punt returner's name?
I don't see anybody from Oklahoma State. You sure he's from Oklahoma State?
Yeah, we signed him really late. He was one of the last.
He may not
guys.
be on this list that I'm looking at right here.
Yeah, he's one of the last guys we signed. But anyway, the
Petaway, is it Petaway, Kyle?
Yes, I believe that. I believe that may be his name.
He's from Oklahoma.
No, that's not who I'm talking about. Then hold on. Yeah, talk amongst yourself. Where does Semenza go? Is he going to be back up? Give me 1 second. I'll find his name. You guys talk about. I don't know, Andrew. Talk about something.
Well, how about the you guys? When we're looking at the schedule, let's shift over to the schedule here. I mean, for me personally, I know this is a tough schedule, but I really believe that I really like. I'll tell you what, I like Blake Harrell a lot. I like John David Baker, JDB a lot. Like I said, I'm just curious to see how the new players on defense, how they mesh, how if we have some kind of
Dave, his name is Kyler Pearson. Kyler Pearson.
Okay.
And he's one of the last guys we picked up out of the portal. I'm not sure why he is not on that portal list on 24/7 Sports. I hope something didn't happen, because it was updated last in June. But he tweeted he had committed to us. Everything, as far as I know, Kyler Pearson is coming here. He's return specialist from Oklahoma State. So that's another, some competition there for Brock Spalding.
Hey, Dave. Hey, here's my take on the schedule. I don't think it's terribly difficult. I mean, out of conference is no holiday, that's for sure. But in conference, I mean, we're not going to play Navy or South Florida, and they're predicted to be two of the top 3 teams. We're not going to play UAB and Rice, who are 2 of the lower teams, and we're not playing North Texas, who's right in the middle. But apparently we have 3 option teams in the AAC now. Rice hired Davidson's head coach, Scott Abel, and he runs an option. It's out of the shotgun, so it's not exactly the same you're going to get from Navy or Army, but they only throw the ball like 12 times a game. They run it a ton, do a lot of RPO and zone read and that kind of stuff. But we don't have to play them. We don't have to play Army, who's our nemesis.
And
Navy.
Navy, who's our nemesis. And Tulane, I think it's the biggest game on the schedule because we have the exact same conference schedule as Tulane. And if we can find a way to win that game in New Orleans, they're suspect at cornerback, and that's not good when you're playing a high-powered offensive team like the Pirates. And I don't know, Caden Simonza, not Semenza, but Simonza from Ball State is apparently their quarterback, and he's unproven, so we'll see what he can do. But I like our chances.
I would be really worried if it was Semenza, but you said Simonza. He's a knockoff of Semenza. So, Semenza's the real deal. So, go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, you talk about our schedule. What I don't like about our schedule is the stretch where we play at Coastal. We come home and play BYU. Then it's a Thursday night game against Army, and then at Tulane. I hate that stretch. You got BYU, and then a short week to turn around after BYU and play friggin' Army on a Thursday night to get ready for that triple option. And the only good thing about that is it does give you a few more days to get ready for Tulane, but you got to go on the road to New Orleans. And, and that's you're playing BYU the week after Coastal. I do not like that stretch of our schedule. But, pretty much on any schedule, there's going to be a stretch you don't like.
Right.
But I think that part of the schedule, and JR mentioned the Tulane game, but that part of the schedule to me is going to be key to our season, whether it's going to be great, mediocre, or bad, is how we come out from that Coastal through that Tulane game. Will really determine a lot of what we're going to be playing for late in the season. If we're playing for a bowl game, if we're just playing out the season, or if we're competing for a championship. That part of the schedule is majorly important in my opinion.
I have one more schedule note. I feel like the conference is getting better. But this year, the conference schedule, 47 of the 56 AAC games is going to feature at least one bowl team from last season. That's pretty strong. And we have 7 games against the SEC.
Wow. So that's actually a very interesting stat. You said how many of the 47 of
47 of the 56 games will feature at least one team that played in a bowl game last season.
That should bode good. Well for
and then
conference perception if we do well.
To wrap up. So we have 7 conference games against the SEC, and actually 2 of them at home. Arkansas is going to be playing at Memphis, and Oklahoma is going to be at Temple. So there you go.
I was going to tell you guys, when I look at you, Johnny, you said The New Orleans game, obviously at Tulane, that's going to be on a Thursday night. That's going to be a really big game for us. But you look at, I want to get your take, guys. You look at the second half of the season, very manageable games. I'm not saying we're going to win all 6 of them, but look at the second half of the season. You have Tulsa home, at Temple. You have Charlotte home. You have Memphis home, at UTSA, at Florida Atlantic. I don't know about you guys, but the second half of the season definitely seems to be, I'm not saying again that we're going to win all 6, but winnable games, which is not like Murder's Row, the second half of the season for the conference.
I agree, but those last 3, Memphis is going to be really good. UTSA is going to be really good. And a lot of people think Florida Atlantic is going to be a lot better this year. To me, I believe that when I see it.
Yeah.
But I do think Memphis and UTSA are quality football teams. I do agree with you overall. The second half of the schedule does seem to be a little bit more favorable than the first half.
Yeah. In other words, if in order for us to be a bowl team, you feel like that first, we always have a schedule, non-conference schedule that's tough, but that second half of the season, if we want to make a bowl, we're going to have to win 4 or 5, like say 4-2, 5-1 on that second stretch. I feel like, not that we're not going to win more games than that, but I'm just saying, if you have a tough start, you better play well in the second half.
Yeah, another note on Person, the return specialist from Oklahoma State. He is still listed on the Oklahoma State roster, so I don't know if he changed his mind or what the situation is there. But
I was looking, Kyle. He's still listed, like you said, on their roster, but he is in the transfer portal. He hasn't decided. From what they're saying, he hasn't decided where he's going yet.
I'll check his Twitter and see if he changed anything. But he definitely released the graphic. It was posted on 24/7, so I don't know if something happened. But he at one point earlier this month he was coming here. I keep wanting to say in June, but it is still June. But it's been a long damn month. But anyway, Andrew, do you have anything else, man? I know some has already bounced on us. Did you have anything else you wanted to get in about
Well,
the
listen,
2025 football season?
Obviously, I'm super excited. Taking a look at the schedule, playing NC State to open the season on a Thursday night is really weird. But anytime you get to play NC State, you gotta celebrate it. And that's the one that's a big circle for me. Win, lose, or draw. That's going to be a great atmosphere. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then obviously later in the schedule, I think that Memphis, UTSA, those 2 games right there. If the Pirates are able to have a successful season, both non-conference as they work through, Campbell, Coastal, BYU, and then get in the conference, if they're able to get to the level of of wins where they're competing late in the season for a conference, that Memphis UTSA stretch is going to be good because UTSA is a well-coached team. They always typically show up, and to play them late in the season is going to be a challenge. And obviously Memphis is, they'll probably have 20, 22 new faces, but they'll be good. So, have an opportunity late in the season, play those 2 teams, possibly for a conference is what I'm circling on the schedule.
Yeah, I like the fact, JR mentioned that Tulane game. If you get past Tulane, the fact that you do have Memphis and UTSA so late, 2 of the better teams on our schedule in conference, you could very well be in conference championship contention, or at least, if you finish second in the league, you play in the championship game. So really, second's as good as first in the regular season. So having those 2 teams late, we really could be in position to be playing for that conference championship. If the offense is as advertised, special teams are going to be good, in my opinion. I like what we've added. Question's going to be, defense. And you talk about games you have scheduled or have circled on the schedule. Guys, can you guess what game I have circled on the schedule?
Charlotte.
You got it, Stevie Fly. That's the game I got circled on the schedule. Look, I love the fact that Blake put the countdown clock up in the locker room. He put 1 for NC State and then 1 for Charlotte. Some of our fans didn't like that. I love it. I said, and I wish Semenza was here for this. He I don't know if he was having technical issues or what the deal is, driving back from Boston, but I told Semenza last year, I said, we got to brace this thing as a rivalry.
Yep.
And he didn't want to hear it. And I'm telling you now, embrace the hate. They beat us 2 years in a row. Look, you're right. It ain't a rivalry. You got to beat somebody for it to be a rivalry. So it ain't a rivalry because we ain't beat them. So I'm telling you right now, in Dowdy-Ficklin Stadium, I don't give a damn what our record is. So we could be undefeated or not win a game. When we play Charlotte in early November, late October, whatever the date of that game is, Dowdy-Ficklin better be rocking. We need to beat them this year. I don't care if it's by 1 point in triple overtime. We have got to beat Charlotte this year.
And I tell you one thing else, Andrew, before I know you got to run, you got to bounce, but I just want to say this real quick. I will tell this to John and everybody at the administration. Here's the deal. The deal is that we have upper deck seats that are not being used. Give them to Boys and Girls Club. Give them to a whole bunch of civic groups. They come in, they'll spend money. And I will tell you something. Those people
give them to Marines, hand them alcohol before the game and purple sweatshirts.
Anyway, Andrew, what are your final thoughts? We'll let you get back to volleyball, my friend.
Yeah, man. I appreciate your sentiment on utilizing tickets. I mean, there are, over the last handful of years, there are a considerable amount of tickets that are going unused. And I know when we played, it seemed like when we had unused tickets, they would fill the seats with high school marching bands. That always is memory to me is having the bleachers in the end zones, and it would be just loaded with high school marching bands. And whatever the school needs to do to fill that stadium up, whether it's a nonprofit kind of initiative or something, but that stadium is way more electric. I can tell you, probably a final thought, my opportunity to be on the road with the Pirates, it is Dowdy-Ficklin is 100% unique in our conference. To me, it is, not including San Antonio that's playing in the Alamo Dome, or not including Temple playing in Lincoln Financial Field, whatever it might be. But Dowdy-Ficklin Stadium to me is the gem of the conference, and it's not even close. And the atmosphere that can be presented there with a full crowd is an absolute home field advantage that no other school in the conference has. And we should be proud of that. We should embrace it. We should try to do everything we can to fill that stadium up, so that teams like Charlotte can't roll in there and dust us up like they have the last couple of years. But no, I'm looking forward to this season. It's going to be a lot of fun. Obviously a lot of new faces on the defensive side, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they're all going to come together and gel, and how Blake, given a full off season here to put this program in his hands, and see how they come out, in Raleigh week 1 against the Wolfpack.
Andrew, I want to throw one more thing out at you. Semenza is gone, but he told me, and he really did say this. He had a terrible signal. He just texted me this while he left. But he predicted that we were going to have a top 10 offense in terms of yards per game this year. Do you agree with that?
Top 10 in the country?
Yes.
I mean,
I think top 25. I will say top 25.
Yeah,
we were pretty close to the top 25 last year.
Yeah,
game.
I would say top 25. No problem. John David Baker, it's a pretty high potent offense. Now with that being said, defensive coordinators now had an off season to really study his film and see what he's doing, and maybe make some adjustments and planning for him. But I think he runs a fun style offense that the players love to play for, and that's a big piece of what you see on game days is players out there that are actually enjoying an offense that they're running in. They've done a really good job recruiting players that want to play in this offense, want to produce inside of this offense. So yeah, without question, top 25 offense in the country. I would bank on that. Top 10, that'd be a pretty sweet season if they're able to put that together. I'm not ruling it out, but that's a tall order.
And can you imagine if we have a top 10 offense, but then our defense is like 130? God, that would be
That's hey. To remind you, that's Ruffin McNeil years.
2010, 2010, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, Andrew, we have the #1 broadcasting crew in America. We'll have that stat for sure. We win every year.
We win every year. That's right.
Yeah. Quick question. So I know you do the away games, right? But Kevin Monroe lives in Durham. He's very close to Raleigh. Can y'all both be in the booth? I mean, that's technically a home game for him, isn't it?
Yeah. So the plan is we're going to be running back the way we did it for the bowl game. So both Kevin and I will be in the booth with Jim for the NC State game.
Well, you know what? It worked before, Andrew, so why change it?
Let's do it. That's right. And my wife and my girls wore the Peach Bowl scarves that my wife, was obviously younger. She went with her parents to the Peach Bowl win, and they handed out scarves. So my wife made sure that she wore the scarf along with my daughters when we were in Navy for that game. And I told her that's going to be pretty hard to break out those scarves in August in Raleigh.
Well, you wait until Richmond has to break out his Charlotte FC hoodie.
That's right.
All right, Andrew, thank you so much, man, for coming on extended time tonight. We appreciate you. Enjoy Florida and Orlando, and we'll see you again real soon. We'll try to have you back on before the season starts.
All right, guys. Go Pirates. We'll see you.
See you, man.
Andrew.
Bye.
Kyler Pearson had on May 23rd committed to ECU on his Twitter, and I just messaged him. So we'll see if we get a response back from him.
All right. Well, we'll see if Kyler Pearson, because he's not on our commitment list and he's on the Oklahoma State roster. So that is the mystery of Kyler Pearson. Is he a Pirate or is he a Cowboy?
All right. Yeah. JR, I tell you what, very excited to have you a part of the broadcast. Same for you, Stevie. You know how much we get Stevie off the air for all friends. And you have 2 commissioners here on the show. I mean, how many broadcasts can say they have 2 town commissioners on their broadcast? That's a stat for Johnny Robertson, man.
Yeah, add that to your stat list.
Are we winding this down?
Yes, we are.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll save. I got a lot of stuff, but I'll save it for next week. But I did want to
Johnny, go ahead, man.
What you got?
No. I will give a rebuttal to you, Kyle.
No.
I will have a rebuttal for Kyle though regarding 2 things. Charlotte. Yeah, the Charlotte thing. In my mind, we didn't even play them last season. That's how distraught I was. That game never happened. We never played Charlotte, so it'll be nice to take them to the house this season. And the other thing was UTSA. I would rather have them early, only because they have 0 defensive starters back. 0.
I agree with you. I'd rather have them early too. I would. You have to see what did Jeff Tedford do in the portal on the defensive side of the ball. I love his offense. I think he's one of the best coaches in the league. If you look at what they were at the beginning of last year and then what they were by the end of the year, his quarterback's back. I agree with you. I'd rather play them early. We got them late, unfortunately. So schedule kind of falls where it falls. But the thing about playing them late, JR, is if we are in a position to try to compete for a conference championship, I think having them late. I get what you're saying. It would be better to play them early, but I do think they're going to be a good team. So I think playing them late it's probably going to mean something when we play them.
Yeah, and analyzing the schedule, they don't scare me. I mean, they're a great team, but they're not unbeatable even in San Antonio.
No. I agree with you.
Definitely not.
That Tulane game is the one for the conference game that we need to be like the one that scares me, the one that will have us. I believe, even though it's the middle of our schedule in October, I feel like it's got a lot of implications, and one way or the other.
I got a fun stat for you here, and JR, you can look this up for me, and I could be wrong. I think the only time Memphis has ever beaten East Carolina in Greenville was when Scotty Montgomery was here.
You know what? I think you're right. I'll look it up, Kyle, but I think you're right about that.
And the first time that Tulane, remember the first time Tulane had ever beaten East Carolina
was also when Scotty Moe was here.
Hey,
a lot of those.
I think we could get a posse together and go down to New Orleans and we would overtake that crowd easily. Tulane has like no.
They draw better in
football
Yulman
games.
Stadium than they did in the Superdome. They draw better in Yulman.
That's because it's only like what 30,000. How many?
30,000. They've improved their intent.
30,000 apathetic fans, though. I mean, they're not.
I'm gonna
don't want to
Corey.
lose to them.
We're gonna get Corey up here, Johnny, and he's not gonna like. Hello, gentlemen. He's Gore's gonna be disappointed in you, Jr.
All right,
but I never will forget. As we wrap this up in 21, we were playing Tulane, and Tulane was really hyped at the beginning of the 21 season. They ended up being the drizzling shits, but we played them early. And I remember Corey was really confident, and everybody on the show was Tulane was favored, and everybody on the show basically wanted to pick Tulane to win that game, except maybe Dave. Dave's always positive, but yeah, Jeff Traylor, thank you, Bubba. I named Bubba. Just texted me. I called the UTSA coach something different. What a shock! But I remember Corey was up here. We were previewing the Tulane game, and everybody thought Tulane was going to beat us, and Corey was really confident, and everybody, including Bubba, Matt, everybody liked Tulane in that game. And I remember Corey getting off the air. I thought, I think we're going to beat the crap out of them. We did. For whatever reason, I got that one right. So,
yeah, John, I think is doing the Temple game. Yeah, it was. Excuse me, the
Tulane
game, November 3rd, 2018.
That's the Memphis one.
Memphis.
I'm sorry, I was going to say Memphis.
Yeah, that's the only time they ever beat us in Greenville. Was November 3rd, 2018. And so Montgomery will not be here for that one. So and we even played well by our standards under Montgomery that day. We put up a lot of points against Memphis and
41.
and lost. Yeah, 41, 59-41. So it'd be interesting to see. We get them in November here. I think Memphis is going to be one of the better teams in the league. Despite what they lost, I think they did really well in the portal.
Yeah. Hey, Temple, though, at Temple, they've had their way with us in Philadelphia a couple of times, so we can't take that one for granted. I think we'll win it, but I mean, that's not a guaranteed win.
You know what?
You talk about taking over a stadium. Ride the train to Lincoln.
No kidding. And it's close.
I think Temple was really bad last year, and I don't really think they did a good job in the portal. I don't think they got a lot of money invested in NIL, but I love their head coach and hire. He comes over from Sam Houston State, did a great job. Was it Delaware State? Delaware, one of those two. He's a great head coach. So it's going to be interesting to see how fast he can turn them around. I don't think he's got a lot to work with.
Yeah,
I agree with you 1,000%, Kyle. It seems like they just the Temple that we knew of old, as far as like in the Matt Rule era, I just don't.
And now it's becoming more like the Temple we really used to know of old.
Yeah, Casey Keeler runs that 3-3-5 defense, which is built to stop the pass. So we might have to run it a bit in Philadelphia against them.
Sounds good. We'll have to see if we can get a big tailgate and maybe the Alumni Association Pirate Club. We go up there and just take over the stadium.
Speaking of away games, guys, the away game I'm looking forward to is Coastal. I'm looking forward to going to Myrtle. We'll get Stevie. Stevie, you coming to Myrtle?
We'll see about that. Somebody made a comment earlier in the chat.
About the
they were looking forward to it because of free concessions.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
I think it was Kenneth. Kenneth was been commenting.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Yeah. So, Johnny, what do you think after your first show? You like being up here in the spotlight?
Technically, it's not my first appearance. I did a brief cameo when we were in Kent Narrows before the NC State game.
I mean, being a part of I know that, but I'm
part of the team.
TSO.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. Honestly, Matt and Andrew, to try to say something, about football strategy or schematics, when we have those two available, I just chose to let them do the talking. They know so much more than I do. So why, so anyhow, it was a good experience. I enjoyed it. And looking forward to some future podcasts.
J.R. Estemenza has told me when I have said similar to him and Bubba don't underestimate yourself. It wouldn't be talking to you otherwise.
I appreciate that, Kyle.
No doubt.
And Stevie,
they don't call you Johnny Stats for no reason, bud.
Thanks, Stevie.
Hey, how about this for John? John White, the former pitcher under Gary Overton. He said, "Good to hear you on, JR. Johnny Stats, good stuff."
Thank you, John. That means a lot to me.
And Bubba says they beat us in 24 and 93.
93. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Marcus Crandall had went down probably by that point. I'm assuming.
We were 2-9.
Yeah,
we're 17-8 overall.
Yeah, I know we have dominated Memphis. They had a brief little run. There, when not really even recently. Bubba, we lost most of those games to Memphis back when the JT into the early Skip Holtz days when they had what's his name, the running back that played for the Panthers.
Gosh, what was that guy?
Say again, Stevie?
Was that D'Angelo Williams?
Yeah, D'Angelo Williams. Very good.
D'Angelo,
yeah, very good. Yes.
Go ahead, Stevie.
So, right running back.
All right, we're going to do our final thoughts really quick. You guys got anything before we get out of here?
Steve, looking for. Go ahead, Stevie.
No, I'll just say I'm glad to be here tonight. Appreciate you guys and getting me on here. Anytime I can talk football, especially Pirate football, it's a great thing.
All right, Kyle.
Yeah, next week, as of right now, looks like we're going to have Coach Hill and Landis back, and we'll have a guest. We're going to rotate this lineup through the rest of the summer. Then in August, this will be our recap lineup. The four of us plus Matt Semenza, Landis and Coach Hill will have their own show starting in August. Say again.
Breaking news. Yeah, we're going to have a lot of.
Sorry, Dave. I didn't mean to step on you there with breaking. So we're Landis and Coach Hill will have their own show in August. We'll be the four of us plus Matt Semenza. We'll be doing the recap. We'll also have our preview show starting in August midweek. But every other week right now, kind of next week we'll go back. We'll have a guest, maybe baseball related, maybe football related. But every other week we're going to be up here discussing some football topic through until we hit August. And then in August we're going to have a full lineup of shows that we will announce in more detail as we get closer. But we'll do our Pirate football recaps on Sundays. We will have our preview show probably on Wednesdays since we have 4 Thursday night games this year. Yep. It only makes sense to go ahead and move that to Wednesday. Hill and Paul Hill and Landis will have a show midweek. We're also working on some other things that we want to announce just yet for midweek, but I think you guys are going to like the content that we're going to be putting out. And like I said, through the summer, it's going to be rotating the football lineup and the baseball lineup every other week. So next week, tune in. It'll be me, Dave, Landis, and Coach Hill, and most likely a special guest.
Yeah, I think they've got a cornhole champion. That was on. I'm joking. I don't have anything. That was not shade. I was just being silly. I
don't get that one, Dave. You're going to have to explain that off the air.
I'll tell you. Yeah. All right. We'll get out of here. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
Stevie, do you have any final thoughts?
Thank you.
All right,
JR, final thoughts.
Final thoughts was, hey, this was a lot of fun. And I've been in baseball mode, honestly. Even today was the last game of the College World Series. This officially takes me over the threshold to football. And I'm pumped, man. I really am. I'm like looking forward to this season, looking forward to talking about it with all you guys. And I'm ready to go.
Robert Dietrich will answer that question, maybe. And if nothing else, we may have our former. We may have, and I make no guarantee shit, but if none of us can go, we may have our former colleague Bubba Rosenbaum that may be there, may be willing to do some things for us. We might have to pay him as a freelance reporter, but if one of us can't be there, Bubba living in the area might do it for us. And but I'd like to go. I'm gonna have to have some surgery coming up at the end of July, but I'd certainly like to go.
That's before your surgery, right?
It's not scheduled yet.
Oh, okay. All right. We'll get out of here. Thank you guys so much. We're doing every Sunday night. It is the Sports Objective. Right now we call it TSO Sunday Night, and you watched it right here. Good night, everybody. As always, go Pirate.
You're watching The Sports Objective, the podcast for Pirates.